Welcome back. This is Andrew Love in the house. I'm burping a little bit. I had a pretty big lunch, so excuse me in advance for that. Because, I mean, we're all dads, but let's try to be gentlemen, fellas.
Let's try not to be nasty, disgusting people for our wives and for our kids.
I know that's hard for some of us. Part of the problem here. So I'm going to keep my burping to a minimum. I will drink my beverage here.
Drink lots of water.
Which is some reverse osmosis water with a little bit of salt. Sponsored by Salt, this video. Let's be classy, dads. This video, so I'm going to be making more of these, and it's going to be just like a chat. I want to have some, deep conversations with you guys. I have the luxury of, for the past 10 years, working for a nonprofit that focuses on relationships, right? I've been working on how to help people to break free from addictions, especially with pornography, but with escapism at large, which is what addiction is, and how to connect to a clear vision and how to connect through action, through day-to-day, start building the life that you want based on the vision that you have rather than reacting, rather than just kind of slowly watching your life fade away from what you would like it to be and feeling like you're out of control and like life is beyond you. So because of that, I've been able to steep myself in a world of ideas and practices, modalities, different ways of getting better at this thing called life. And it's been my honor, but it's been my privilege because I inherit so much myself. This has saved my marriage
100% post.
So I want to today just unpack this idea of becoming an expert at loving your wife. Now, this is for dudes who are married and especially who want to have kids, because anybody else who is not that, you don't have a wife and you don't have kids, I care about you. Just don't want to talk to you right now. I just want to talk. This is it's exactly like that meme of Spider-Man holding on to, let me see if I can do it. Holding on to the two trains, Tobey Maguire. That's the noise that I would assume that he's making in that picture. But life can feel like that. Like this side of the train, that you're trying to hold is like the life that you want. And then this side is your reality and you're just trying to hang on, trying to make it work. And it can feel some days like you're being torn to shreds because there's too many demands. You don't know, there's not enough support. There's too many inputs. Not enough capacity to output sufficiently to make it work. So I have deep sympathy because I've been there for years, for a prolonged period of time, but I climbed my way out. And a huge part of how I got out of that and how I'm really enjoying life. I love my wife so much. I love my kids. I get to steep myself in the experience of being a family man during the prime of my life, which I'm still there. I'm still there, I swear. Some might argue that I'm turning 44, knocked on wood. I don't know what that means, but say a little prayer for me. I feel like I'm super young, but whatever. I think I'm in the prime of my life. But this is all possible because of certain systems that I put into place, certain ways in which I handle stress and all that. And that's what I want to unpack in this channel. And today, in particular, I want to talk about how it is your job as a husband to become the absolute expert in one person. First and foremost, your kids obviously eventually, but they're changing all the time. So you got to adapt, hence dadaptation. But to really become an expert in knowing and loving your wife the way that she is, not the way that you want her to be, not the way that you like to manipulate her to become, but how she is. And that is not an easy feat. First of all, to actually just accept somebody for the way that they are. And even me, to this day, I still struggle with it, but I got way better than I was. I'll tell you, why is this important? Well, I've known so many guys that lose their love, the love of their life, because they don't take care of the love of their life. Men will pursue a woman like an obsessed crack addict who's fiending for crack. There's no stopping. You get superpowers. If you're a drug addict, I don't know if you've ever known a drug addict, they can leap buildings. They can climb the Empire State Building. If you're like, hey, there's a bunch of meth on the top of that, they will scurry up like a little cockroach, right? Not calling drug addicts cockroaches, everybody chill, but imagery. Come on, metaphor. Because when the desire is so absolute and acute, you will get superpowers. When it's that strong. And this is what men are like in the beginning of a relationship. They will pursue a woman with great authority. They will leap over mountains. They're like, what do you want me to do? I'll get a new job. I'll cut my hair. I'll get some abs. What, like when you're in love, you'll do anything. But the thing is that so many men fall out of love with somebody, and it's not that person's fault. And it's definitely not love's fault. Love is always there for us. It's because you stop putting your attention on that person and you start to get distracted yourself. And this is when complaints start coming into a relationship, and you're like, oh, my wife does this, I don't like the way you do that. And then these shadows or this darkness appears in your heart, and it prevents you from fully loving.
What is love?
And then little by little, you just don't feel it. Number one in this conversation is don't ever be led by your feelings. They're there to kind of give you some information, but they are not the entire conversation. For God's sakes, that's kid stuff. You know who are completely led by their emotions? Kindergarten kids, right? Tantrums, a 3-year-old on his face in the middle of a crowd screaming because he's hot. That's the essence. That's the quintessence of being led by your emotions. And if you've ever seen an adult lose their temper and completely go mental, it's because they're still a 3-year-old on the inside. They look old, they might be bald, they might be, powerful looking, they might have a power suit with pinstripes, but they still yell like they're 3 years old because internally they are. So first things first is don't be led by your emotions. Don't trust your base emotions, right? We do have to learn how to trust our instincts and our heart and our conscience and these things, but these are deep, long-standing, like under their emotions. Not like that, I feel today like this. That's kid stuff, okay? So in terms of like falling in love, there's no sense of like, I don't love you anymore. It's, I don't feel love for you anymore, okay? So that's the first thing. But this is more about like, if you're into the idea of having a lasting marriage, and I know this is a dangerous thing to say, but I believe that I've built a divorce-proof marriage, not because of some law that I've implemented through some tax code or something, where my wife could never leave me. It's nothing like that. I believe that I have the systems in place so that even during the toughest of times, we're safe. You have all these preppers, right, that are prepping for doomsday. They have, thousands of cans of beans in their basement. These kind of people. I'm a prepper for tough times in marriage. Sure, if the apocalypse comes, I might not be that ready, but I'm ready for when arguments come, and so I can survive. And so, it's really important that you have something beyond emotions to guide you through those tough times. When all of your emotions are saying, this is terrible, you should leave, she's wrong, you're right, she's wrong, you're right. You have to just override that with something higher than just these reactive emotions, okay? I mean, if you want a sustainable relationship, that only gets better over time. So there's like the emotional conversation. That's part one. But part two is more just about actually like learning about who your wife is and what her needs are. There's the whole like love languages thing where if you learn, it's kind of a cool book. I don't believe it fully. I don't believe there's only 5, but they did a great book. You can't write a book about the 157 love languages. You have to kind of whittle it down for the sake of marketing. I think there's a lot of stuff that's left out. Like mine, I don't really fit into any of those cleanly. I have one specifically that I tell my wife, this is my love language, and has something very specific to do with us and our dynamic. But learning about how she, your wife, feels loved and supported. Like for some women, it's like watching you participate in daily things. Like I had a baller grandpa, and as soon as he retired, he looked at my grandma and he said, hey, what's one chore that you hate doing? And she said, cleaning the oven. And he said, done. You'll never do it again in your life. I'm on it. That's my job now. That's me. I got this. He probably didn't speak like that because he probably wasn't an idiot like me. But that's the kind of stuff. It's like, what are your needs? What are your wants? What are your desires? What are your hopes? What are your dreams? What are your fears? How do you feel safe? What makes you feel scared? Like learning about this stuff and caring enough. Because again, at the beginning of a relationship, it's very easy to care. Like, oh, what kind of music do you like? Oh, you like that book? That's so interesting. And then cut to year 7 of a marriage, and she's like, oh, I just read this great book. And you're like, oh, tell me about it. You know what? I got stuff to do. I don't want to hear about your books, right? So that's just a laziness. That's like a lack of attention to detail about caring. When you show somebody that you care through action, through listening, of course, active listening, but through doing and follow through, then they feel cared for. And they reciprocate that with loving you back, by showing you they care. And then this creates this reciprocity of actually reinvigorating love time and again. It's super exciting. And I'll make a video about how to fall in love millions of times with the same person, because that's a skill. It's a skill.
Hell yeah!
So if your preoccupation in life is to become the greatest expert at loving your wife and letting them know that in the way that they need to feel love or are wired to feel loved, then you will have many happy days ahead of you. And the reality is that we don't really do that kind of work. We get lazy. We kind of coast. Just like back in the day when you would have a career. You know, I hear that people would work the same job for 40 years. And if it's like in the middle, not quite like CEO level, not quite upper management, kind of middle to lower, you're kind of not growing that much during that time. You're doing a lot of repetition. And so it's like the same day on repeat, and you can clock it in literally, and just kind of you clock in and then you just kind of go on autopilot, 8 hours a day, go home. But there's no like joy in that. That's how so many men back in the day who had that kind of situation, they got real fat. They died soon after. Like I worked for Ford for a little bit in my 20s. And I remember hearing that the average time after retirement that people would die would be like within 3 to 4 years was the average of like people dying after they retired, because they just had like no will to live by the time they made it through 40 years of a job they didn't care about, where they were disengaged mentally and emotionally for 8 hours plus a day. And then they just go home and try to drown their sorrows in cheap microwave food or light beer or whatever. There's like the spiritual nature of humans is like, if you have a will to live, a desire to live, you can get through so many sicknesses and you can prolong your life. But the second you stop wanting to live, your body starts shutting down in many respects. So yeah, if you want the same thing that I was talking about in terms of job and self applies to a marriage. If you just clock in and do the bare minimum, you might be able to not get divorced externally, but internally you're drifting and you don't feel love for this person. And not only are you just missing out on so many opportunities for joy, for belonging, for the deep stuff and the fun stuff, right? The highs and the lows, all the stuff. But actually, if you have kids in that environment, they're not getting what they need to be functional humans. They need a mom and a dad who are locked in, ready to love each other, really committed to each other. That's how they feel love. That's how they learn love. You have to learn love. It's not like given. Kids aren't just born in this world and learn love. Without the requisite love, they will inevitably drift and start doing things like drugs, whatever, right? So yeah, I really feel like, this is not a story that we hear often, is that our number one job is to be the expert in our wife, in how they experience love, and to love them in a way that nobody else could. So they have nowhere else to go. Anything else is a compromise. Anything else, right, is like a downgrade, because we're giving them the premium, most organic, cage-free love, just like the premium top shelf love, just like the slickest, fastest, strongest love, right? This is what you want. Not like the leftover. Like, here's my heart. Don't mind it. It's a little bit broken and used. Who wants that? Who wants the leftovers, sloppy seconds? They want the best of the best, and they deserve it. And that's what you committed to if you're married. That's what you committed to in the beginning. And a part of you felt that, yeah? But also over time, it's not that you kind of don't believe that, it's that you stop feeling it, and you believe your feelings more than you believe your commitment that you made in the beginning. So you can always rekindle love. You can always revitalize a marriage. And not only can you, but why wouldn't you? If you could have the marriage of your dreams, it's absolutely up for grabs. Trust me, I've had both extremes. And it was kind of like vacillating up and down quite a bit for a few years, and then we stabilized, and now we've been on a very clear trajectory, upwards and upwards. And of course there's blips like Bitcoin, that annoying Bitcoin, but the trajectory is constantly up. But I don't know about the future of Bitcoin in 10 years. I know the future of my marriage, and I would invest whole hog in my marriage. Would you invest in yours? Or are you sketchy? You got some side projects that you might, if this doesn't work out, right? You don't want that. I'm all in, baby. Everything 100% in my marriage. And I hope that you can find that too. But it's based on your effort and their effort, obviously, Your wife has stuff to do too, but it starts with us. Men are clearly like the energy behind going to space, starting wars and all this. This energy in us to take over the world is unavoidably a testosterone-driven energy. And it can be used to destroy the world. It can also be used to do great things.
I'm going to blow up the earth.
And so our families is really depending on us to be focused and to focus that energy into loving our wife first and foremost, more than anybody has ever loved that person. Even more than her own papa. Think about this. Her dad had to love her. I mean, you can't, when you have kids, it's like unavoidable. But we choose every day to be loving or not. And then that, I want to say bleeds down, but that sounds gruesome. It trickles down to our kids and they benefit from it. So it's worth the investment, y'all. It's worth it. So I hope this is helpful. I'm going to be doing more. My posture is terrible throughout this video. Maybe I'll stand in the next video. I want to walk around too. I'll take this camera for walks and we'll go on some nice walks. I hope this is, honestly, I hope it was helpful. I hope you got a lot out of this. And please, write some comments or reach out to me if you want anything, if you have any questions. I'll see you next time.